Hi, good morning. Soumitra here. So today also there is a little bit of late because people are coming in late. We have around 20 participants now, 19 precisely. So let's start the session and probably people will join in. So as you know that from the previous session we have started the last module, the third module in fact, not the last module, the third module, where actually we are having a discussion on all the applications, how the skills and applications. So today primarily what we'll discuss is that how to develop a theory of change, what is theory of change, how to plan and manage programs, what are the nuances of monitoring and evaluation, and also a little bit of budgetary planning. So before I start, let me inform you that next week we will have the last webinar session of this particular third module. Then I would prefer to start having more direct interaction with you based on the assignment. So that what we will do is that probably in smaller groups, depending on the assignments you are taking, probably we can form smaller groups if it is the same assignment you are taking in that group, and we can fix some arrange some kind of interaction. It might be on phone, it might be a conference call, it might be on Skype, and then probably we can have more focused discussion on that particular assignments you are taking. For example, if 3 people are developing, say, CSR policy. So I think, it would be better that we have a more focused discussion with these 3 people who are working on the same plan. That is the policy formulation, and then we will plan some of these interactions at different stages. Probably one interaction at the initial stage, then after a while, when you work on that, we'll get into another interaction. Like that, we'll have few interactions planned with these subgroups. And also, definitely we'll be interacting on mail. Now, my request to all of you is that after today's session, next session we'll be discussing more on how to assess an NGO, how to develop a policy and all these things, and you have the module with you and you know exactly what are the topics we'll be discussing in the last session also. So I think after today's session we should be in a position to at least broadly narrow it down to some of the assignments what you would like to do. So that based on that, as I said, that you will have to share a small synopsis on the assignment, what you are trying to do. So, it's a small note you will have to share mentioning the name of the assignment. If you are doing it in a group, then, who are the group members from which company, etc. Then you will have to talk about a little bit about the topic. That if you are talking about the policy, then, you need to give me a little bit of framework of that. Oh, it is not working. So what I would prefer, let us actually have a plan that after next session, next Tuesday, the session we'll have, within a week, after the last session of third module, within a week, what we would be doing is that we will actually get all the synopsis together so that you have good, 5 to 7 days time in hand to really jot down the synopsis after the last session. But, I would request that from now you start, putting thoughts on that and start actually having a discussion on that. So I saw some of the mails, some people actually approached to CII that they want a list of the participants and all. What I would do is that I would request my colleagues to post a participant list on the LinkedIn group with contact details and other details, whatever is available with us. Today itself, my colleague will actually post that list on the LinkedIn group, what we have created for you. and you can actually download the list of participants if you want to interact with the participants directly and really decide amongst yourselves. All right. Sorry guys, I think there was some technical problem and the link was broken. I don't know, I had been actually, I was continuing talking. I didn't know that it is delinked. So I will repeat again, quickly what I said. I said that in the next session, on next Tuesday, in fact, what we'll do is that we will complete the third module of our course. That means on 21st of October. 21st of October, our third module will be completed, and by 21st of October, you need to decide on the assignments what you will be taking up. You might do it alone. You might actually do it in a small group. Don't make it a big group. So you make it a small group so that you can actually work in a focused manner on that. So after 21st of October, what you do is, based on the assignments, we will fix some direct interactions with you with the smaller groups. So it might be based on phone call, it might be a kind of Skype, and definitely a lot of mail exchanges we can plan. But what I would expect is that after 21st of October, within a week, you all are submitting the synopsis of the project you want to do. The synopsis, briefly again, what would mention is the name of the project, little bit of the rationale, why do you want to take that project. Number 3 is what are the objectives of that particular assignment, who all are joining on that assignment if we are doing it in a group, if we are not doing it alone, and also a little bit of description that if it is a community need assessment, in which community you want to do, where it is exactly, so that I can also be prepared to support you, right? So you will have to submit the synopsis within a week time, and then what we'll do is that based on that synopsis, we'll group you. We'll find out that who are doing the same assignment, and accordingly we will plan some of the interactions to guide you through the assignment. So that is the broad plan. So let's start in today's session. As I said before, again, I'm repeating. I don't know when the connection was really gone. So today what we'll do is that we'll discuss on the theory of change. We'll get into that, what is theory of change and how to develop a theory of change. Then we'll get into program planning, first of all, issue analysis, program planning, how to do monitoring and evaluation, and how to do budgetary planning. Some of the main features we will be discussing today. Now, quickly, just to do a recap of our previous session. What we discussed that it's important to ask broad questions that why should we do CSR, what is that big change we want to bring in, and how do we get into that. And to create a shared vision, we discussed about the main factors contributing to develop a vision. So we talked about the external factors like the market condition, regulatory environment, political environment, social condition. Many of these conditions you cannot influence directly, but there are on your right hand side there are some connected factors which are shareholders expectations, employee interested, customer expectation, community need expectation. Those are the factors what you can influence. You are more or less in direct can directly engage with these factors, and then you will have to take care of the global norms and the national norm, and then you will have to take care of all the internal factors. We talked about the organizational culture, performance management system, governance, strategy, business model, product and service development, and especially at the core you will have to, it would be around the value or the purpose of the business. So this is what we mentioned, that how it is so important to create, and also so difficult sometimes it's to create a shared vision. Now we said that to develop a shared vision there are different levels of developing that common vision. The first category, we do develop a vision, and then we tell others, inform others, this is what the vision is. That is a very initial stage. Then we said that how do we actually convince others about our thoughts, our vision. So we sell actually our vision to others. So we develop something. The first level actually we are just informing, we don't bother even whether they're convinced or not. At the second level we try to understand, we'll try to convince them. In the third level, it's a kind of testing that what we are thinking or what the vision we have developed, the way we want to do it, is it the right way of doing? So a little bit of testing and revalidating our vision and thoughts. Third and the next level is consultation, so that we consult different kind of people. We do shareholder consultation, we do stakeholder consultation, we do community level consultation, and try to develop the vision through consultation. But we said that if you really want to develop a shared vision, it is not even consulting. We talk about co-creation of a vision, so that how everybody can actually get engaged. But definitely also we mentioned that everybody cannot get into a boardroom, but at different level how strategically we can create those engagement opportunities for people, for the stakeholders. That is very important to create a shared vision. After that we quickly had a discussion on the situation analysis. We discussed that there are so many different exercises we do while doing a situation analysis. We talked about the context. To understand the context, we do a PEST analysis. PEST is political, P stands for political, E for economic, S for social, and T for technological. That is a kind of context. But we had given a little more elaborated context analysis format in the last session. Then we talked about SWOT analysis, and then we said that SWOT alone, in a disconnected manner does not mean anything unless and until we do it in a confrontation matrix. So we discussed about the confrontation matrix also. We had a discussion on community need assessment. We discussed about different kind of needs. A very interesting part of understanding need is that all felt needs are not real needs, or all expressed needs of the community is not definitely a real need. So we had quite a bit of discussion on that. And then we also, of course, had a discussion on stakeholder analysis. Now, as I said, that these are the different kind of needs: normative, felt, comparative, expressed. Those are the kind of different needs we discussed. We discussed that once you do the community need assessment, what usually happens is that you land up with a number of numerous issues prevailing in the community. Now what to do, which particular issue we'll start with. So for that we said that we do a little bit of exercise which to prioritize issues, that what issue you will start with. And it is not only the community priority, you will have to see the business relevant, you will have to see the feasibility of that particular issue, and you will have to see the interlinkages with that particular issue with other issues, so that you'll have to pick up some of the key issues which will have eventually will impact the other issues. So gradually you can actually build up a much larger impact. So that we discussed, and we also discussed some of, again, some of the matrices I had explained to you. I don't want to get into, all the matrices, because we have already explained this to you. This again, you download this presentation from my CII in or CSO Porter's website, and probably, if you have any confusion, you write it. You can write back to me, and I can, again explain to you. We talked about a little bit of force field analysis. We said that, if you take up a particular issue, and then if we see that, what are the feasibility of this particular issue to address, and force field analysis is one of the exercises through what we can understand what is the feasibility of particular initiative to address a particular issue. Then this is a SWOT analysis, of course, on confrontation matrix. We discussed that. I gave an example that, if you send me, if there is an opportunity, say, to participate in basketball match, yeah, and I have a strength of strategic planning or something like that, definitely that strength will not be applicable for that ball match. So that a strength, when you are actually considering a strength or understanding a strength or a weakness, that has to be understood in the context, in relation to the opportunity and the threats. So we said that, how we can put all the strengths and weaknesses against the opportunities, identified opportunities and threats, and you can actually measure that. We can actually, so I said that, on all the matrices, if you can assign numbers for each of these, then probably you can have a very clear picture of that. Environmental scanning, we talked about PEST, but this is a little longer list I have given. So we talked about political context, legislative context, social, demographic, environmental, economic, and technological context. Market player analysis, again, say we gave an example that a particular bank, if there are 10 banks, whether those 10 banks will have the same kind of programs, because, the business is almost the same kind of business. So, it is important to understand that what the other partners are doing, are the competitors or complementary, and then probably see that how to develop a relationship with them. So that is another exercise we talked about. Now, with that particular context of our last session, today we will first start with a theory of change. Now, what we always do is that we work on the basis of a lot of assumptions. That if we do a particular activity, and if we keep on doing, probably that will bring in a lot of changes. So that's a huge amount of assumptions we actually work upon. Now, for example, if you were, say, giving training to a farmers group, right? Say, you are giving a training on improved agricultural practices, farming practices. Your assumption is that once you give the training, in the first level assumptions, the farmers will absorb the knowledge. There will be an increase in knowledge. The second level assumption, you are thinking that if there is an increased knowledge, they will apply that in the farm. That is also an assumption. This is something you assume. The next level assumption is that if they, apply it in the farm, and a lot of other externalities are there, like the rainfall is good, there is no, other natural calamity, there is no pest problem, and this and that, based on a lot of assumptions, if they apply that in the field, probably the productivity of that particular, land would be enhanced. So if you see that there's a series of assumptions, which will lead to that. Now, after that also, when your direct intervention is also over, then also we have a lot of assumption that we assume that if agricultural productivity is increased, that might lead to, say, enhance of income, increased income, that might lead to food security. So these are actually based on a lot of assumptions. Now, when we do a programming, so it is very important that how accurately you assume all these factors, So it is, again, this assumption is not based on only your gut feeling. It is also scientifically how do actually you understand these assumptions, and the theory then you formulate. If we do this particular activity in long term, there might be an impact on food security. So this is a big theory we do, and we actually, according to the theory, we do our interventions. Now, if we get into a little bit of detail about that, your view of how change is going to come about, the mechanism through which it occurs, that is what I was saying. By doing a series of activities, there will be a series of changes, a sequential changes, logical changes, and that logical changes will bring in a change. So that is based on a big assumption, and that's a theory or a hypothesis, sometimes we call it. Once we actually prove that no, this is being done, then we say this is a theory. So that is a big change theory. We see that this is a theory of change, that if we do this particular thing, if we, these are the touch points. These are the tipping points. If we actually create a small ripple here, that ripple will enlarge, and actually create a much bigger change, eventually. So that is what simply we call theory of change. In most of the cases, we find that we do that. We keep on doing activities. We more focused on the activities and the results of the activities. But what are the big change we want to create, and what is our theory of change? Sometimes we don't get into that, and definitely we don't articulate that. Now, rather than projecting outcomes from your activities, theory of change reverses that process by focusing first on what outcome you are seeking. In the example, as I said, probably the last big change. What is that big change you want to do? The big change is you want to address the issue of food security, so that you want to ensure food security. That is the big change you want to bring in. Now, to do that, what are the things, series of changes, then you do a little bit of back calculation, do a reverse calculation, and try to see then what are the activities and what are the series of work and the sequences will bring in that big change. Interventions and activities are then based on your outcome framework. So that, and as I said, that first of all, need to understand the big change we want. Then gradually, if we try to see that what are the immediate things will lead to that, then we can actually do that milestone. So that if it is the 10 miles we want to cover, we start from 10 miles, then what would be the 9th mile, what would be the 8th mile, and gradually will come to the 0 where you are today. Now there is one thing we have not discussed in so many words before, and today also we don't have that that much time to discuss that. But I mean, this is something you all know, that unless and until, first of all, it is important the change you want to bring in, and also it is important to understand that why we are, what is the baseline at this point of time, what is the situation. If you don't know the zero level where you were, the zero level situation where you are now standing now, it's very definitely you cannot really plan how to reach to the 10th mile, right? So this is what, as we discussed, that first, if you look at the steps, first you identify the long-term goals, then list our preconditions. Preconditions, as I said, that if you are talking about enhancing agricultural productivity, what are the preconditions? The precondition is that probably land availability is there, water availability is there, there is enough irrigation system or rainfall, there is no natural calamity. There are a lot of preconditions, and many of these preconditions, in fact, most of the preconditions are actually not under your control, right? So there are a lot of preconditions. A good planning is always how do you predict all these preconditions, how do you identify all these preconditions, and based on that, how do you develop your program. Then based on that, you identify your intervention, And then you see that what would be the indicators at different level of your interventions. We'll get into detail of the process again. Now, if you look at these particular graphics, in this graphic, you have the present status now, right? We do a benchmark study, we do baseline study and try to understand what exactly we do, that situation analysis and all this. We try to understand what is the present state. We have the desired state, that today probably, malnutrition level is this, and our desired state is that, today the situation is that around 50% of Indian children are malnourished. Our desired state in our project area, probably we want to reduce the rate of malnutrition to say 25%, right? Now that is the desired state. Now how do we reach there? So then we have, if you look at that we have a series of assumptions. The most critical assumption is that after our project life, that once, if you look at where the arrow is ending, the green arrow has ended with the objectives, after that there is a huge gap between the objectives and the desired state. What we think is that if in the project life we bring in certain changes, that we can actually bring in, again, I will get into more details to be clearer with you. We assume that, okay, this is a state of change, we'll leave that project at this point of time. But that will again in long term lead to a bigger change. So that is a goal level, the desired status level. So if you see that, it's a series of assumptions are there. And that is why we say that, this is a theory of change. From present status, if we want to get into the desired status, we think that by doing these activities, we assume that that desired status will come. And that is what our theory of change. For example, again, if you really say poverty alleviation, my theory of change could be, okay, education. By doing education, I empower people, I will actually make people capable, build up their capacity, so that in long term, in our project life, we actually achieve the educational objectives. Everybody is educated, children are going to the school, quality education, everybody is learning, etc., etc. But our assumption, long-term assumption, that will lead to poverty alleviation, so that people are empowered and they will actually address the issue of their poverty. So that there are two different things. One is the series of assumption in our project life, so that by doing teachers training, we assume that there will be a quality enhancement of training. That's the assumption. That is also a theory of change, that by doing certain activities, we can improve on the quality of education. But in our project life, we can only talk about the quality of education. But in a long term, what we think the bigger theory of change is, by education, we can address the issue of poverty. So that definitely might not happen within the project life. That will happen probably much later. Yeah. So it's a big theory of change, and that's a big assumption, and that is what it is called, theory of change. When, see, like this particular work, CSR work or community-based work, working with people, it should be as scientific as you work with a machine, as you work with any other product or any services. Because if you see that the human society, I need not to mention, that is the most complex dynamics we live in the society. And also, if you really want to work with human being, their behavior, and bring in social changes, then you can understand that what kind of scientific approach and how serious job we need to do. So that when we talk about any program, then we need to be clear that do we really understand that, what are the assumptions we have, and by doing these activities, what are the changes we require. As those examples, people give, that, a small flap of butterfly here in the right position might create a storm, somewhere else. But here we need to say that by doing these particular activities, what are the big changes, and that we establish that by doing this activity, that change will happen. So that correlation between the desired status and the present status through the activities, and that is what is the theory of change. Now we get into how to plan a program. So, the usual way, the way we do, I mean, two things we mentioned, two different things. It's actually logically, I find it's almost similar. The same kind of logical sequence we talk about. One is we talk about log frame analysis, log frame planning. Another, we talk about the result-based framework. Both of these are actually fundamentally the same. So today we'll pick up the logical framework, log frame, and try to see that how to develop that. And this is something I would like to mention, that this is a key factor of your planning. I mean, this a success factor of your planning. There are a good log frame analysis of the issue and log frame planning of the program actually will contribute to the success of the program. And unfortunately, I would mention that I really didn't come across too many good people, too many people who can do it, in an appropriate manner. So that you can see that, this is something we sometimes think that, this is something, a common sense. It's not a common sense. Actually, it needs a lot of analysis. It needs a lot of insights, and then only, somebody can develop it properly. So that, let's go through that. Now, if you actually start with the first level, let me get the pointer. Okay, so at this level, this is goal, right? As we said that, that ultimate milestone, that ultimate, destination where we want to reach, the 10th mile, that is the goal, but within our, project time, what we can achieve in most of the cases is these objectives and outcomes. That's the next level. That is what we said in our project lifetime. This is something we need to achieve. Next level is the outputs or deliverables, and then the activities. Now, let me give you the same example. We did the farmers training. That is what the activity. We did a number of trainings. Now, how do we set the indicators? That how many farmers attended the training, in how many locations? So you can actually set the indicator of the activities, and that's actually a little bit of, it's not that complicated, right, at the activity level. Now, what we assume that by doing these activities, there would be enhancement of knowledge. There will be increased knowledge of the farmers. So that is what we call it, the result of the activities. That is the output of the deliverables, right? Then we have, if you have enhanced, the farmers have enhanced knowledge on the farming technique, then we assume that they will apply that. Now there's a big change of, there's a big difference of having knowledge and applying that. There the behavior part comes, and that is the most difficult part to achieve. Now what we do is that, I give you another example. Say if I am a smoker, you give training to me to inform me that, okay, smoking is bad, etc., etc. I got that information. Then, I know that, all bad things about smoking. But whether I am actually quitting smoking or not, whether I am applying, changing my behavior or not, that there is a big difference. That it is not enough to having the increase in knowledge, but whether I am applying that or not. And that application comes, the behavior change comes when, then we say that this is the outcome level or the objective level, right? So within our project cycle, in most of the cases, because these are very long-term programs and there are so many externalities are involved in this, so we keep our project goal at that objective or outcome level, so that we say that, okay, this person has quit smoking. Now your ultimate goal is not definitely quit smoking. Ultimately goal is probably to have improved health condition, improved financial condition, or improve your standard of life, probably. Yeah. So that might not actually be achievable within the project term. That we are assuming that if this person quits smoking with other, if that person at the same time does a good job, earns enough money, if that person's family, is supportive, etc., etc., a lot of external assumptions, with all these are right, if all these things happens with smoke, quitting smoke, that guy will have improved, life standard, right? That's a huge externality involved, and that happens in a very, very long term. So that in most of the project cycle, what we do, 3 to 5 years project cycle, we keep our, the expectation, we think that objectives are met. Now, if you see that this is the format we use in log frame analysis and log frame planning. We set indicators. Now, again, if we take the same example of the farmers, how to set indicators, we say that 100 farmers are trained at activities level. Then we say that out of 100 farmers, 80 farmers have increased knowledge. If there are 10 knowledges we had identified to really transfer, we say that at least 8 out of 100 farmers, 80 farmers will have at least, say 8 informations available with them. And they can, they have internalized and they can recall all this. So that could be another indicator. At outcome level, then again you will have to say that, out of those 100 farmers trained, how many farmers are actually practicing that improved technique in the field, right? So we can add another level. In fact, objective and outcomes level are two different levels, for the purpose of, to present it in a simple manner, I have put it together. So after outcome, we can say that, okay, if the outcome is that they are applying it in the field, we can say that how much productivity, is enhanced in the field. That is the objective. So we end it in that particular, since probably an agricultural project, our project objective is met. Now, but the question might be that, so what? Yeah, the agriculture productivity is increased, so what? So what is actually, then we'll have to talk about the goal. That if that in agriculture productivity is increased, then we assume that their financial condition would be good, they will have enough food, etc., etc., so that we create that desired situation we wanted to, that big picture at goal level. But that might not, again I am repeating, that might not happen in your project life. Now we set the indicators. After that, we say what are the sources of verification. Now when you do that, we'll talk about the monitoring and evaluation. When you go for monitoring and evaluation, how do you understand that how many activities are done? How many understand that how many farmers out of those 100 farmers have increased knowledge? So then you will have to, for each indicator, you will have to mention and plan it before. It's not later. That how to maintain that information system. What would be your information system? That there might be training registers, there might be assessment of training, so that you have those score sheets and all. So you'll have to understand there might be photographs, there might be project other reports and other things. So what exactly would be your sources of verification? Now if you see that on the right hand side, there is a column called assumption. As I said, that assumptions are very important. Now we have to see that what are the assumptions involved. As I said that, if the behavior change happened, if they're applying the skill in the field, and if the rainfall was good, or they had enough water for it to irrigate their land, and if there is no other pest problem, or if there is no other natural calamity. So those are the things we assume. Yeah, and it is important that you note down all the assumptions in a planning stage. You identify, and a good planner can actually identify each of these assumptions and try to see if there are too many assumptions involved which is under your control, whether the project is feasible or not. Again, if you go back to that force field analysis, you see that we put on the force for and force against. So forces for, if it is higher than forces against, then definitely it's a feasible project. If the forces against is higher than the forces for, then if you can invert some of the forces against to forces for, then you can make it feasible. So that how do you factor all these assumptions in your planning? That is really, really important. Now these are the elements, as I said: activities, outputs, objectives and outcomes, and goal. So I have already described that. So, in this, see, there are two phases, as I said. When I was describing this, I talked about analysis and then I talked about plan. One is that how do you assess or analyze the issues and the situation? That is what it is. How do you use log frame analysis? And, how do you actually, to get the log frame analysis, you need a lot of information, and you get those information through your stakeholder analysis, problem analysis, objective analysis, strategy analysis, etc. Then you put it to a planning phase. I'll get into more detail about that. Now, if this is the example, if you take, what we do is that through analysis, we try to link the cause and effect, right? Now, what is presented in front of you, that is a symptom or the effect of a lot of, complex set of causes. So, from that particular symptom, we need to go back to understand what are the underlying causes which is resulting to this particular symptom. Like if somebody is coming to a doctor and reporting that that person is having fever, the fever, as we all know, that's a symptom. If you see a malnutrition, if you see a kind of status in a particular community, that is again like that fever, which is just a symptom. But then we'll have to understand that which virus has created. Is it a viral fever? Is it something other infection which is causing that inflammation or the fever in that person? Like that, we'll have to understand if it is the status of children malnourished, what are the precipitating factors leading to that particular symptom. So what we do is we do it a causal analysis, cause and effect analysis. We link between cause and effect. Now, if you take this particular example, the effect we identified in the particular community, again, this is just for example, rice production is insufficient for the population of village X. Now, when we started, a little bit of digging up why it is like that, we started consultation with the community. We started taking qualitative, quantitative data. We got two, causes immediately, which is leading to that particular symptom of insufficient rice production. What are those two causes? The irrigation system is faulty, so that there is no enough water for doing farming, and agriculture practices are unsuitable. So that one is that as I have been giving the same example, one is that there is water problem, and there is a problem of agriculture practice. Now, why irrigation system is faulty? Again, get into that. The system received no maintenance, so probably there was an irrigation water because of bad maintenance that is defunct now. And another reason we found, some irrigation structures have been destroyed, that is already broken. On the right hand side, if you see why the practices are not suitable, then we are saying that support services for farmers are not available in that area. One reason. The second reason is that the farmers have no investment capacity. So that one is that they have a problem in knowledge. Even if they have a knowledge or they had a knowledge, they don't have really money to actually, to translate that knowledge into practice. So sometimes some knowledge is required, a little bit of other inputs to make it a practice. So that we develop, we analyze the problem of which is presented is that low or insufficient rice production. So this is a kind of causal. Again, I am giving very simple examples so that you can understand it quickly and we don't have to spend too much of time on that. Now, what do we do? Once, if you look at this particular thing, once that problem is analyzed, on left hand side, if you look at this, that we have analyzed the last, this particular thing, that why is rice production is insufficient. We just reverse that. It's a kind of mirror image we create, right, on the right hand side. Sorry. So this is the kind of mirror image we have created. In this particular, on the left, we said that rice production is insufficient. What the objective we are setting for this particular project is rice production is sufficient, right? On the left hand side, if you see that the first level of cause, we said that the irrigation system is faulty, and then on the left, then we'll have to definitely work on the irrigation system. So then what we do is that we actually put it in an affirmative version from problem to objective. Then our objective tree is ready. Now if you look at this objective tree, so that what the activities we do is that the system receives proper maintenance at the lowest level. So that immediately what we'll do is that you do irrigation, maintaining irrigation system. Then damaged irrigation structures are repaired. You start repairing that. Support services to the farmers, a lot of training, other things you start conducting. Then farmers have the resources to invest. Probably create microfinance group. You work on some kind of access to finance for the farmers and all. Then we assume that by supporting, by repairing and maintaining the irrigation system, irrigation would be working. Now the big assumption is that, see, there is a big assumption of water, from where the water will come, right? There's a big assumption. So that is what we are talking about earlier as theory of change. Now the irrigation system, if the irrigation system is working and the agricultural practices are appropriate and they are applying because now they have the knowledge and the money to apply, we assume that if these two happens together, there would be an increased production of rice in that particular area. Now with that, what I'll do is that let's take a break for 5 minutes. At 12 o'clock, we'll come back. Thank you.
Dear participant, please confirm my voice is audible.
Hi, I hope all of you are back. Let me see. Okay. There's a lot of audio problem till 12:03. Can you hear me now? Please, can you please ensure that if you are, just respond if you are hearing me properly? Okay, okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, let's start. So now what we discussed is that if we look at a problem, in most of the cases, the problem is presented at a symptomatic level, and then we'll have to dig out what are the causes for that particular problem. We call it causal analysis. I am giving very simple examples to you so that you can understand. Usually these cases in reality it is not that simple, because you can understand it's a complex dynamics in the society. There are caste problems, there are gender discriminations, there are regional discrepancies, there are other interventions involved from the government, from the NGOs. Yeah, there are political dynamics in the village. So that, usually, in reality, these are very much more complex situation. But I am giving a simple example so that we can, for the purpose of today's discussion now. Now, say if this is a situation, again taking the same example of insufficient rice production. Now you are in a stage where you are developing the program. If you see those, the blue boxes, we choose to do that. Why? Only the blue boxes. Why? Because rest of the boxes we think probably, during our assessment, during when we are doing the data collection, we understood that actually the government department is supposed to do that, and we mobilize the government department to do that. So that is not our direct programming. We depend on the government departments. Probably the irrigation department will take care of that, and that year the budget is allocated and they have a target to achieve that, so that you don't have to take up that issue, you take up the rest of the thing. Another example, now this Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, I think most of you would be interested to do that. I see there is a huge response, and that's a welcome response. But you need to understand that there are allocations from government. Okay, so what are the things what you will be doing? What are the other things what would be the government would be doing? And then put together, your assumption is actually you will have the Swachh Bharat. That is actually the long-term goal, right? Now, recently I was visiting a project area of a particular corporate. It's a big one, really one of the biggest corporate in India. I was taken there to reflect on the programs and all. And there, as many of you are taking up Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, they are also taking Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. I was going through the community, and in that particular community, I saw that in most of the households there is no sanitary latrine. So that naturally this particular company, they have allocated a lot of money and they want to construct toilet for each of these households. But if you look at those houses, many of these houses I found, say 52-inch, LED TV. They have 4-wheelers, they have 2-wheelers, quite a bit of lifestyle. And as this is a manufacturing company, many of these families are actually the landowners who has given land and got a lot of liquid cash, so that there is an immediate, change in their lifestyle. I mean, there's in long term that might actually a different scenario, but in short term now there is a lot of availability of money, so that there is you can look at those houses and you can see that a lot of new constructed houses, new LED TVs, new mobiles, new cars, and etc. etc. Now my question was that what is the cause? Again, I am giving a very simple example of not having toilets. Is that they don't have enough money to construct toilets, or there is something else, right? So definitely looking at that particular community, you will say that no, these guys have enough money, but they still don't have the toilets. Now you'll have to get into further and see that then why they don't have the toilet. There are behavioral aspects, there are aspects of even settlement pattern. Like one of the communities, definitely, most of the communities I found, they have enough land to have a toilet with that, their homestead land. They have enough space to have a toilet. But in one particular community where there is a little bit of marketplace, it's a very congested kind of community, they even didn't leave a space for a toilet in there. So it's such a congested area. Now, what is the solution? So you will have to get into little more detail and try to see whether this is the behavior aspect, whether only constructing toilet will solve the problem, or if you construct the toilet should be there, but people might not use the toilet. So how to change the behavior and all these things? There would be again gender issues. There would be many beliefs and misbeliefs about toilets. There are different kind of obstacles, social, financial. In this case, probably in most of the cases, not a financial obstacle. It might be a social, cultural, behavioral obstacles. How to now address that? If you really want to do Swachh Bharat, that big change you want to bring in, then you will have to find out the exact cause, what particular behavior. And the behavior, we can clearly see that they don't really prioritize the need of a toilet, or they don't use toilet. That's the behavior. But what is the causal factor leading to that particular behavior, and what are the changes we need to make so that we can influence that behavior? So this is, again, I would say, when you develop a policy, develop a strategy of program, then you will have to see that, what are the things you will do. You have done a causal analysis. There are thousands of causes. There are, many very complex dynamics of several causes together. But some of the causes, like, if you see that, okay, do we really avail the government fund, which is already there, and we top up that fund to have the construction of toilet? Is there any NGO who is working on that? Should we leave it on them, or we construct the toilet, or the NGO is there, and they have a good understanding in that community about their behavior, the cultural pattern, and other things, so that we can complement that. So they work on the behavior part, we work on the construction part, so that then you develop a strategy. So that it is not that after causal analysis, what I'm trying to say, if you look at, again, come back to this particular diagram, this graphic. On the left hand side, the boxes are already, can be done by somebody else. So that your program strategy is that if I do all these blue boxes and the other white boxes are done by somebody else, all together will actually, if you put all two together, that will lead to that particular objective we have set, that is sufficient production of rice in that particular area. Now, we have little bit of discussed this. Again, to go back that, this is the way we put it together. This is a kind of matrix. You can use Excel sheet, or, a table we can use, where we list down, all these sequential impacts or results from activity to the output to the outcome. And as I said, again, to just remind you, there is a big jump between the output and the outcome, because the behavior change is involved in that particular level. I have increased knowledge of smoking, why smoking is bad, but why I have not left, if I leave that, that is the outcome level change. Then, the immediate probably health benefit out of that is that objective. And ultimately, probably you want to see there is a enhancement, there is a improvement of our lifestyle, or standard of life. That is a goal level change, what we see, what might happen beyond the project life. Now, what we do is that for each of these, Three things again, just to, make it simpler. It is very, very important that you note down all the assumptions, right? As I said, that you are working on irrigation system, there is no rainfall, there is no water, then definitely you are assuming there would be water, there would be rainfall, there would be no natural calamity, etc. So that you will have to, understand those assumptions realistically, and you'll have to factor in these assumptions. Then you will have to see what are the indicators. Like if we go back to this particular thing, what could be the indicators? Support services to farmers are available. Now you'll have to see that support services, first of all, you'll have to define what are the support services, to how many farmers. Those are the indicators you can say. Farmers have resources to invest. Now, how much money per capita loan or what kind of financial access you can create, you'll have to then quantify that, and that is what you, set as your indicator. Now, while we do set indicators, sometimes again we do it, uh, based on a lot of intuition. Like if I say that malnutrition would be reduced, at a different level, at a higher level, I'm saying malnutrition would be reduced by half. So that it was 50%, now it will be 25% in our project area. Now, have you studied that with all these interventions in different parts of this country in the similar kind of situation, what is the reduction rate? In 3 years, what would be a realistic value to say? Yeah, I mean, we said that, okay, half, but is that a realistic, or we can do little more even, or little less? So again, when setting the indicator, it is not all intuition. It is again based on some analysis, some assessment, some comparison, some data you will have to collate and try to understand what would be the trend in other places in similar situations, similar kind of activities, and then try to see that what should be the realistic indicator for that. If you set a higher indicator than the realistic standard or the trend, then definitely you cannot achieve that. Or if you put a lower indicator, then you will underachieve in your project. Now we talk about SMART objectives, right? Or SMART indicators. Now, what do we talk about? What do we mean? I mean, very quickly, as I think most of you understand this. SMART is S stands for specific, M stand for measurable, A stand for, sometimes we talk accurate, we say, and sometimes it is acceptable. Accuracy and acceptability both I would put for A R for relevant, and T for time bound. Now, when I am setting an objective, again, if we go back to this particular example, rice production is sufficient, right? Now, to be specific, we'll have to say this: in this particular village or in this particular project area, rice production will be sufficient. What is sufficiency, right? You'll have to be very specific about that, and that is also measurables. What is the measurability of sufficiency? So you'll have to say that, per family, this amount of rice would be available, and so on and so forth. Now, whether that is accurate, what the indicator you are saying, and acceptable. So, if you look at the local practice, local culture, and all these things, if you say that, okay, if it is, say, primarily their food is based on rice, then you are saying that, okay, half of their food would be rice and half of the food would be wheat based, and all these things. Based on their food habit, probably they will not accept that. So you will have to see that what is the acceptability, what is the accuracy of that. As I said that, if you are saying that indicator, will have the malnutrition rate in that particular area, whether that an accurate, indicator to set, or the trends in other places says that it's impossible to do it in 1 year to have the malnutrition rate and all these things. So that's not an accurate level. So that you will have to make it an accurate indicator. And the last is the time bound. As we can say that we are saying that in this particular village, increase of productivity of rice would be increased by this percent or by this amount, right? or per capita this amount would be available, like that, and by what time, that is the time boundness. So that has to be put in either the objective sentence or the activity sentence or the outcome sentence and the output sentence, or you can actually put it in the indicator. There is, some people put it, the objectives like this. In this particular village, X village, rice production would be enhanced by this percent. Some people do that. Some people actually frame the objective like rice production is sufficient for the population of village this by this time. Indicator, they will say that rice production enhancement this, okay, per capita availability of rice this, so that you are taking care of smartness or the smart indicators you are putting, but objective is a statement you are putting. Both are right if you put smart objective or smart statement, objective statement, or just an objective statement, and you can actually take care of the smartness in the indicator side. Now, this will actually help you to see how to plan your activities, when what kind of output is expected, when what kind of outcome is expected, and when the objective is expected. You can simply develop this kind of matrix, and this is just an activity schedule we have given. Like if these are the 10 activities to be done, then in month 1 what are the activities, month 2 what are the activities, month 5 what are the activities, in year 1 what are the activities, so that then you can sequence when the output of these activities can be achieved. Now the activities done in the month 1, probably output of that can be expected, or outcome can be expected end of the year or in 6 months time. But when you are doing one particular activity in the end of the year, then your output or outcome can be seen in a later stage. So that then you need to understand that how do you schedule your activities and the consequential results in terms of output, outcome, and objective. So that based on that, you can actually do a kind of time frame or scheduling of all these results, activities and results. And based on that, you can monitor your program. You can try to track your program progress and program impacts. Now I have given some objective examples of more objective trees. This is just for your reference. You can look at that. Again, this particular objective hierarchy, we call it hierarchy because one lead to another. There is a hierarchical relationship between the activity, output, outcome, and the objective. So I have given 2-3 examples. You might actually like to go through that. Now we will get into the monitoring and evaluation part. Okay. So till now what we have discussed? We discussed that first of all it is important to have a theory of change. That first of all you need to understand that what that big change you want to have, what is the desired status you want to bring in, and you need to have an articulated theory of that. By doing this we can actually get into that kind of big change. Again I am saying that that particular desired status might not be always within your project lifespan. So that desired status, we call it goal. And in the project life cycle, usually we achieve up to the objective level. Again, give the same example. Enhance, having sufficient rice production can be achieved in your project's life cycle. But through that, what kind of impact on that, their lifestyle, their life condition would be created, that might not be visible within 3 to 5 years. So that, but that was your desired status. So that a huge assumption is there. If we do these activities, if their production is enhanced or they have sufficient rice, then there would be that desired status would be achieved. So these series of assumptions we have, so that our theory is by doing these activities we can create that particular desired status. That is a theory of change. It is important to understand and important to actually synthesize and articulate. Then we talked about a little bit of log frame analysis, that how do we analyze a particular issue or a problem from that symptomatic presented problem. Then we do a causal analysis. Then how do we reverse that causal analysis, that problem tree, to an objective tree, right? Then we talked about at different level, as we said again to remind you, the big change happens between output to outcome. That is the behavior change. Yeah, as I had given that example of, if I am smoking, if you are giving me a lot of information, my information is enhanced. But unless and until I quit smoking, you cannot achieve those outcomes. So that there's a big difference between having informed, having all the knowledges and applying that, right? So that is why, that it takes usually a longer time, to translate the outputs to outcome. Then we discussed little about how to set indicators. You will have to mention when you are doing the planning. Again, after the causal analysis and all these things, we said that if we want to develop the strategies, the program strategies, it's not that the entire tree you will have to cover of problem analysis. You will have to see that if somebody else is working on that, you leave that part. If something is happening automatically, you leave that part. And something which is manageable by you, that you are taking up, and your assumption is that if government is doing the irrigation system, some NGO is doing the other part, if I do this part, all put together, we will actually take the community to the desired level. We discussed about SMART objectives or SMART indicators, and also the kind of matrix. I said that it is very, very important that you'll have to identify your assumptions, and you'll have to factor in all the assumptions which should be articulated in your program planning. Now what happens? When we work, I have worked with, several corporate, I worked with several NGOs. In most of the cases, like the corporate I was giving an example to it's a set of activities what you will find in the program planning. But we don't know, these are all actually standalone activities. In that particular corporate, what I found, they have number of SAGs, they are working on water supply, they are working on, they are having some, medical camps, they are also renovating some of the, ponds in the villages. So it's a sporadic set of activities. Is there any theory? Is there any, real, comprehensive picture out of that you can draw out of all these activities? It's very, very difficult. So I would request you that first of all, try to understand the community as an integrated system. Then try to see what is, do your situation analysis and try to see at what level you want to achieve. And then you see what are the activities and what are the outputs, what are the outcomes, that sequential changes you can bring in. Now the challenge in the Companies Act is that it is on year-to-year basis. You will have to do your activity planning. So my suggestion is that you develop a 3 to 5 years plan, program plan. What should be again reflected in your policy. You can reflect that in your policy. Nobody will restrict you. It should be a very, very important your program document internally also, because that is what will give you the long-term changes and an integrated manner. You can have a comprehensive picture of that, and then you try to see, as I saw that, as I showed you, that how to create those activity schedules out of the log frame. You do that year-wise activity schedules. Put the first year activities in the first year budget. Next year you put the second year activity. What are the activities you could not do in the first year, you put it in the second year. But never ever plan these programs on annual basis. Please plan your programs based on your project cycle, based on the causal analysis and the log frame design, program design planning. And based on that, you see that, what are the activities in the first year you should do, what are the sequentially second year activities, what are the third year activities, and you can actually present those activities year wise for your annual plan and budget. For God's sake, please don't plan your programs year wise. Plan your programs for a full cycle of the program. Break down those activities and then make activity schedule, put those year wise, and then probably you can put it. So that is one of the, I would say that, big problem in our particular Companies Act, the section 135. Now another problem what you might face is that, say, a particular company, especially it will happen with the SMEs, MSMEs, that for this year, for last 3 previous years, based on the last 3 previous years, net profit and all, this year you have probably some money for CSR program. But because of market volatility, nowadays it's a very volatile market and all these things, next year might not be that much amount of money is available. Unfortunately, that might also happen. Then what to do? You have already planned programs in the pipeline. How to manage that? I would say that if this year you have enough money, then plan a total life cycle of a program with that entire money. There is no harm in showing unspent balance, because you have already given that program description. This is a 3-year program cycle, so I am actually saving that money. It is not an unspent balance. I am saving that money for the next 2 years of that life cycle. Next year, if you have good money, start another program. But if you are starting a program for the entire life cycle, please keep that budget reserved. I am saying that there is no harm. It does not look bad at all if you actually consciously factor the plan and do the budgetary plan like that, and you reserve that money and carry over that money for 3 years. Because you can, in your policy, you can straightaway state that I don't want to start 10 sporadic activities and then next year if get into again uncertainty, because end of the day, who would be the sufferer? The community would be the sufferer, the stakeholders would be the sufferer. So to make sure that we have, we can continue with that particular program what we have launched, to take it to a logical end, we are carrying over consciously, and that is a policy. There is no harm and there is no violation of the legal, provisions. So again, I'm leaving it up to you, because it's a board decision and other, you guys will decide to do that. But if I were in your position, I would have done that. Now, let's discuss about monitoring. See, definitely, today I'm not going to, and we don't have that opportunity to get into, too much of detail of MIS and monitoring and evaluation and too much of detail. I will go through a kind of overview. I might, you might like to develop a monitoring system as your assignment. If you do that, probably I will have that opportunity to give you more hands-on guidance to do that. Now, when we talk about evaluation, there are two different kind of evaluations. One is that the process evaluation, and the second is the impact evaluation. So always we talk about impact, as you say that we have just discussed that impact is when the behavior is changed, when is that objective is achieved. Yeah. So that does not happen overnight. So that you cannot do impact assessment every year. You will have to give some time to get some of the outcomes to come. Then only you will can capture some impact study. Or probably end of the life cycle, the project life cycle, you can do an impact study. But then what to do? Throughout the project cycle, you will have to do a process evaluation. You will have to track the process, whether qualitatively, quantitatively, the process is in the right track or not. Now, process evaluation looks at the actual development and implementation of a particular program. It establishes whether you have made the quantifiable targets and implemented strategies as planned. It may provide early feedback as to whether or not the program has proceeded in as intended, what barriers have been encountered, and what changes are needed. Example, I did a teachers training. Quantitatively, that's fine, 100 teachers attended. Qualitatively, I see then when we are counting on the output, I'm not talking about outcome, not impact level, I'm talking about the process level. We see that most of the teachers, they really didn't achieve that desired state of knowledge. Then during process evaluation, you will have to do the reflection process. Is there any problem in the training methodology? Is there any problem in the selection procedure of the participants? Is there any problem in the materials? Do we need to have a refresher training? These are the mid-course corrections then we can do, so that it is not only quantification, it is also quality, that we can measure. The quality of the process and the quantity of the process we can measure, and you will have to do it on continuous basis throughout the project life. So that is why it is so important to do and plan your process evaluation. Now, if you don't do the process evaluation and actually you go ahead with teachers training, then the next stage after 3 years, we realize, oh my God, there was a big problem in methodology, or we should have done some kind of reinforcement of the inputs we have given to the teachers through some kind of refresher training and all these things. It might be too late to realize that and come back and rephrase the whole process. So that is why from day one, your process monitoring mechanism should be in place. Now, that is why when you are doing the program planning, you should have a separate document, as even in our CSR Act, in the Companies Act, in the policy, you will have to give a monitoring and evaluation mechanism. That's a good provision, in fact. So ideally what it should happen is that when you are launching the program, you have the project document, you have the proposal of the program, you should have the monitoring and evaluation plan also in place. Yeah, with all the formats. See, evaluations and monitorings are not always done directly. Like, you will have to have two systems. One is that somebody is going and on-field monitoring, and then second thing is that flow of information from the field. One, documentation and reporting, so that while doing the training, whether it is being documented properly, you have a periodic reporting system. What should be the period of the reporting system? What are the information you need to capture? So what kind of format you will be using? So those are the things while you are launching program, before that actually should be in place. During the process, you might refine those system and refine the formats and other things, but it should be beforehand, should be in place. In many corporates, I have seen that there are people who are supposed to go to the field and do the evaluation and do the monitoring and come back. Now, you don't have to wait for that person to go to the field. Before that also, continuously you should generate information. This is a continuous flow of information from the field to you, and necessary information. Unnecessary information and cluttering of information is really bad for your program. The person who is going for supervision or monitoring, that person should actually be informed by those things before he or she goes to the field, right? Many a times, unfortunately, I'm again from my really, practical experience, I'm saying there two things happens. One, the person does not do their homework. They don't do their, secondary data analysis, report analysis. They are not informed before going to the field. They go to the field, start from scratch. Second thing, in most of the organizations, the most professional organizations also, I have seen, they generate a lot of unnecessary data. They don't use the data. They get in reports. They get a lot of data from the field, but at the corporate level, at the corporate office level, nobody is compiling that data, nobody is studying that, nobody is actually doing any projection. So this is a misuse and underuse of data. First of all, you need to understand which is manageable data and what is required, and that only should be captured. Anyway, so now if we talk about outcome and impact evaluation, as I said that this is to capture a big change. It is not about the process, whether that person has quit smoking or not. That's the outcome. That at that level you can do the impact evaluation or outcome evaluation. What do we do? Measure to what degree program objectives have been achieved or outcomes in that case. That is short-term, intermediate and long-term objectives. In assess what has occurred because of the program and whether the program has achieved its outcome objectives. Now it's very important. Now if you read it carefully, it assesses what has occurred because of the program. Now you need to understand there are another angle of outcome. What is intended impact? What is unintended impact? Right? I don't know if you have come across unintended impacts. Again, unintended impacts could be good or bad. Yeah. So sometimes what happens is that when you plan, you strategize some of the activities and you assume that some kind of impact would happen. At that point of time, you don't realize that some other impacts might happen which is not intended by that particular program. Now I'll give you a very, very interesting example. I don't know if we have discussed this example before. In New Guinea, long back, I think early 18th century or something like that, a group of missionaries they reached, and missionaries were actually trained professional anthropologists. They reached there. They had two purposes. One is that definitely they had the anthropological interest. Second thing was also they were involved in trading. So in some of the islands, they found that the people in those islands, the inhabitants, they are in a very so-called in that anthropological view, in a very primitive state of civilization. They have a very simplistic economy, very simplistic political institution and all. So they found that the key instrument, what they use for the economy is one axe. Yeah. With that they cut trees, they even do hunting. This is a kind of hunting gathering society. It was not an agricultural community, it's a hunting gathering community it was. So the axe or the hatchet they use, it is, the blade is made by stone, and it is tied with that wooden butt with a some kind of creepers. They found this axe or the hatchet a very primitive tool, and they thought if we can change it, the anthropological view, some analysis they did, and it's a fact. I'm not telling you a story. If we change this and actually give them steel axes, then probably we'll see there would be a lot of changes. We have nowadays the tipping point theory and all these things that there's a tipping point, a small touch in a particular system that might create big ripples in other part and all these things. So there are similar kind of thoughts they had, that if we change this small tool, because it's the main instrument for them in the economy, that might actually bring in a lot of change in that civilization. They did that. They actually distributed a lot of steel axes. Obviously, they got a lot of indigenous productions, a lot of precious, semi-precious stones and golds and etc. from them in exchange of those axes, and then they went back. After around 5 years, the same group actually reached there. I will have to go a little faster now. And found there is a lot of social disorganization in the community. They were really surprised. They tried to do the analysis that why exactly it has happened. The institutions, the social, political, economic institutions are destabilized. A lot of conflict in the society. What was not there at all. Then they found actually that particular acts, was an instrument also for social and political control, because the head of the community used to distribute those access. The access were made by 3 communities. They had complementary role, different 3 communities. One particular community used to make the blades, the other community used to, get that wooden butt, and the women of that particular community, they used to tie that blade with that butt. Now after doing that, they will actually give it to the head of the community. The head of the community, according to the social status, based on their performances, he will distribute all the access to different people and all this. So in short, that act, around that act, there was a inbuilt control mechanism in the society. So the unintended impact, when I'm going back to that, was that disorganization in that particular society. But the intention was that probably they said that there will be a lot of positive changes. Anyway, that's a very interesting. There are so many hundreds of cases like that, and that happens in our day-to-day life also. So that we'll have to see that one is that intended and unintended, that has to be captured, impact. And as I said, that unintended impacts might have positive and negative aspects also. And third thing what you need to see is that what are the externalities? At some point of time that you think that how much to attribute to your project, that for our particular project what are the changes happen, because there are changes, there are media influence, there are influence of government programs, there are different. So how much I would actually take the credit for bad or good impact, right? That is also another very, very critical aspect of impact evaluation, that how do I neutralize the externalities and try to see that what is the impact of our program. So that is why I was saying that particular sentence, it assesses what has occurred because of the program. Is very, very important, and you need to read it properly. Indicator lists listed out in the log frame analysis need to be tracked and measured to understand the progress made. Again, we are saying an impact evaluation looks at long-term, deeper changes as we have discussed that have resulted from the program. The outcome evaluation tells us what kind of change has occurred, and impact evaluation paints a picture as to how a program might have affected participants' lives on a broader scale. Now, this is what we have discussed already. Now we will have to see that from, say, we are giving different levels. Very quickly I will go through that. If we look at that, we are starting with the inputs, the investments, right? Then we have the activities, then we have outputs, we have outcomes, we have objectives, different levels of results. Now, what we measure through the process and impact evaluation, if you look at this side, this process evaluation is up to this, we are saying, and then there is a scope of impact evaluation. So what we measure is that, first of all, economy, right? So what is the cost effectiveness, right? First of all, how much money we are spending, what kind of activities we have done. So to do 10 trainings, how much money? So that's the kind of economy we see. And then we see the efficiency, how many training we have done, and then how many people really learn that. So that efficiency of that particular activity, that through your process evaluation you will have to measure, so that from that investment to this particular thing, it would be your cost efficiency. So that how much money you have given and how much money you have actually learned. That's the cost efficiency part. Then from the outcome, from output, so that so many people have actually learned so many things, and how much behavior change happened, and then how much change in their lifestyle probably has happened. That's the effectiveness. So that from the effectiveness, say again, if I go back to the smoking thing example, that I came to know about all the negative impacts of smoking. That is my output. Through that, after that I quit smoking at outcome level, and what are the changes in my life condition, overall. That's the objective level. That is what the effectiveness. So that will measure usually in the impact level, that what is the effectiveness. So that there are two levels. One is the efficiency level, another is effectiveness level. So these are the things we need to build in our monitoring system. That at different level, how do we measure the economy, efficiency, effectiveness, and also there are some different little more details are there, like that how do we actually see that what is the sustainability and all these things. Scalability. Now when we talk about scalability, we talk about at output level, that how many trainings we can do, so that again that will flourish to many other areas. I mean, how much coverage, the impact would be determined by what kind of output we have created. And then we see that if the objectives are created, so that you are saying that my life condition is changed, or probably that agriculture productivity is increased, whether it's a sustainable, or after that after 3 years that it again drop down, because what you have done is that probably you have given a lot of chemical fertilizer to the people, so that there would be an immediate increase in productivity, but gradually the productivity will come down because the fertility of the soil will come down. So that you'll have to see that it is sustainable or not. So in long term, it is not actually good if you are using that, so that it might be using that chemical fertilizer. It might not be a sustainable approach. Now, so realistically, what we'll do is quickly that probably we'll keep the budget part for the next day. Let us actually do the M&E part today in a good manner. So M&E plan should involve the overall purpose of the scope of the M&E system, indicators that is relevant and practical. The whole M&E system, M&E means monitoring and evaluation system, will be developed around the use of information, feedback mechanism that will be based on the analysis of the data or the information collated as part of monitoring and evaluation. As I said, what are the things we measure? That we mentioned effectiveness, efficiency, impact, sustainability, and also we see the relevance of that particular plan, what you have done, right, through the monitoring and evaluation system. But this particular diagram is really, really important for you. So if you are designing your M&E system, you will have to look at this and try to see that at different level, what are the things to be measured, and what are the system of information, how do you capture those information, how do you analyze those information, and how to develop the whole information system and monitoring system. Now, as I said that we'll keep the budgetary planning, I will cover it in the next day. So the next day what we'll cover is three things. One is policy formulation, CSR policy formulation. We'll get into NGO partnership building, and broadly partnership building also will develop, and also we'll actually cover the budgetary planning part. Now let me look at the questions, if you have any question today. Or if you have any question, you might like to ask me now. We have another 10 minutes. Ms. Shova is asking that, can we get some help to get some case studies for us to work on? Definitely you can do. As I mentioned, that case studies could be one of the good options for your assignments. So you can do a case study. Only thing is that please share the plan little more details in the synopsis to me. And as I said that I would like to receive all the synopsises by 28th of October. Yeah. So that on 28th of October we have a session. I will not make any presentation, but in that probably what I will do is that I will present all the synopsises and see that who is doing what project, so that the whole group knows about that, and we can actually present you a plan, a schedule for one-on-one interaction or interaction with the smaller groups based on the assignments. So next phase we will not have these presentations, webinar presentations. We will have more of interactions on phone and Skype based on your assignment, and I will guide you through the assignments. Okay, any other question? Okay, just a small announcement. We are launching the second batch of this program in December, so that if you think that your colleagues, your friends, anybody would be interested, please uh, share the information that we have the second round of the certificate course launched in December. Please do that. What we'll do is that my colleague is informing me that we will be posting the contact details and the participants list of this particular batch on LinkedIn, and also we'll probably circulate it through your mails. Okay, so that if you really want to club with somebody, we want to work together with some other company, even I have no problem. But only thing is that, see, this is up to you. I am not an examiner or anything. I don't want to test. I will get into that role. It is up to you that how much you are interested, and how much you will learn through this process. So you feel free to partner with somebody else and do the program, or if you want to do it alone. Okay, so if you guys don't have any question, let's call it a day. And as usually, yeah, can you please share any link to get a case study? Get a case study, you'll have to do a case study, Ms. Shova. Now, for this particular assignment, I don't know if I'm understanding you correctly or not. For this assignment, probably what you will have to do a case study. It could be a case study of an NGO's program, your CSR case study. It could be even a case study of a person, how that person is impacted through a program. Any kind of case study. If you want a ready case study for some other purpose, I don't know. But for this assignment, if you want to do a case study, you yourself will have to do a case study. Okay, for reference. Okay, I'll see. I'll see. Well, Miss Shobha, why don't you do one thing? Why don't you just shoot a mail to me, so that I can, if is there any case study ready-made, I will send it to you. Yeah. Okay, so is there any question? Otherwise, as usual, you might actually write to me. I will try to get back to you as soon as possible. And just to remind you again, next Tuesday would be the last webinar sessions. Then actually you will be working on your assignments. So I would expect that by next Tuesday you decide your assignment, and by 28th of October you submit your synopsis. On 28th of October we'll have a session, not to present any other topic, but to decide on how do we manage those assignments, how would we actually communicate with each other. We can schedule some of the interactions and other things. Thank you so much, and see you on next Tuesday. Thank you so much.